Welcome. We are talking today about The Heart of Darkness and whether it is a racist work
or not racist work.
We have come to the consensus that it is
racist.
And not racist.
So we basically think that it's not racist because during this time, Conrad wrote this work, and that's what everybody thought. That's, black people are savages, and they're cannibals and just awful people. So it's not racist in Conrad's time. However, in our time, it is racist. It's pretty darn rude racist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was saying, was how it's not racist is because it was kind of like an unconsciously racist thing. Like, I don't think a lot of the Western civilization was just raised to believe what is considered cultured and civilized, and then they go to this different culture that is not their own, and they think that they're savages, and they're using racist stuff in here, like quotes that we found. But in actuality, it's just what they were raised to believe. Like, these different cultures were foreign to them, so yeah, it was kind of like they were being racist, but like not really meaning to. It's just something that they couldn't understand fully.
So our first racist example I have discovered is when Kurtz is beginning to describe the black people that he sees. He talks about a chain gang on page 1963. And he mentions, he's like, I've seen the devil of violence, the devil of greed, and the devil of hot desire. But by all the stars, these were strong, lusty, red-eyed devils that swayed and drove men, I tell you. And so it's when he begins to describe them as devils where that's pretty racist.
And then further on, a little bit farther from there, on page 1965, we talked about how it says, the strings of dusty niggers with splay feet arrived and departed. And so a part of this racism is describing the Africans as ugly, which is apart from what he's used to, but he doesn't just portray them differently. He just says that they're ugly. All of these kinds of ugly images that he describes contributes to the racism of the whole work. And I do agree. I think that it was an unconscious racism, but at the same time, it's such a blatant racism. It's kind of a fine line between not knowing and knowing. Because back then it was common that the Africans weren't as good as the Englishmen, as we talked about last week. And so, in a way, it's racist but not racist.
So I'll just go through and find it later. I'll just have to find it. But basically, the evidence, another piece of evidence that we got to show how like it was unconscious racism was that towards the end when Marlowe is talking to Kurtz's wife
and aunt.
Yeah, and they're like asking him about his travels over to the Congo, and they're like, oh, how was it? Must have been like horrible, and saying stuff like that, which to them, like, they could see it, how it would just be horrible because it's just it's foreign to them, and then he like doesn't want to tell her anything about what they experienced over there because he says it was just too dark, and so he just wants to like allow them to keep living in their societal constructions of what the Congo is like because it's easier than what they experienced. Mm-hmm. But it's just, white people going to a different culture. Of course, they're not going to get it because they're white, but like, I don't know, if you were living out there, you wouldn't see it as dark. You just see it as something that you're used to. Mm-hmm. And then you'd probably look at the white people and you'd be like, oh, it's so horrible. Their skin is so bleached and I kind of have these giant warships or whatever.
I actually met someone that went and served her mission in Morocco, and she's white, and she said that she was walking to preach the world, like to talk to people, and little children ran away from her because they thought she was a ghost.
There you go, another piece of evidence.
They're like, ah! And I'm like, that's so
unconscious racism.
There it is. Now that you mention that, I kind of think of Kurt's, he was comfortable when he lived in Africa with all of the Africans, because he could be, his deplorable self, as Marlowe would describe it. And so when the rest of the crew came back to him, it's kind of like another realization of being part of two different worlds, of being in Africa and then also from his home life. And so maybe the horror that he sees is just that inability to reconcile both worlds at the same time. Yeah. Because it's just hard to see.
Or you could see that as racist too, because Kurt is just white and he's wanting to rule over all these.
That's true.
These natives.
Do you want another racist example of them?
Sure.
I have many racist examples.
Give him one, please,
Well,
the audience.
The fact that he calls them cannibals and treats them like animals. It was funny because I was reading here. It says, I would no doubt have been, on page 1982, I would have no doubt have been properly horrified had it not occurred to me that he and his chaps must be very hungry. He's talking about the black people and how they haven't eaten for over a month. They haven't had their human meat. And they must have been growing increasingly hungry for at least this month past. They have been engaged for 6 months, and then he keeps on talking about how their skins, on page 1983, these are big, powerful men with no capacity to weigh the consequences, though their skins are no longer glossy and their muscles no longer hard. He just talks about how they haven't been eating human meat for so long that now they're no longer strong. Mm-hmm. There's also another good part about racism.
There's also some feminism in here too. Racism towards women.
Being a woman is not a race.
Wait, I think it is, because we're superior. Where is it?
Before you get there, I'm gonna
talk
about my next one. My favorite racist part is when they get attacked, and then the guy who's in the boat that Marlowe knows pretty well, he's black, and he gets hit by something and he starts to die on the ground. He talks about how in 1987, that it was a shaft of a spear that either thrown or lunged through the opening had caught him in the side just below the ribs. The blade had gone in out of sight after making a frightful gash. My shoes were full. A pool of blood lay very still, gleaming dark red in the wheel. His eyes shone with amazing luster. And then he talks about, he looked at me anxiously, gripping the spear like something precious. With an air of being afraid I would try to take away from him. I had made an effort to free my eyes from his gaze and attend to the steering. With one hand I felt above my head for the steering outside. And he keeps on going. Where is it? Okay. He died without uttering a sound, without moving a limb, without twitching a muscle. Only at the very last moment, as though in response to some sign we could not see, to some whisper we could not hear, he frowned heavily, and his frown gave to his black death mask an inconveniently somber, brooding, and menacing expression. And he later goes on, it's he just basically is I can't believe that this thing has feelings. And so,
do you know where that's at?
I can't find it. But I found where he dies. And it's just that point where Kurtz realizes...
Kurtz or Marlowe?
Marlowe realizes that these people feel hunger, are people. And that in itself is pretty racist, because he assumed that they weren't.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Same, I concur.
How long is that's only 10 minutes.
Okay, then let me just throw in my bit.
On your feminist bit.
Because we went through that pretty fast.
No!
It's still on.
Good.
I wonder if it's gonna show up in the video if it just goes black or something.
No, because wasn't the green little light still on as it recorded?
Right. Yeah. As I struggle to find my feminist page again.
Again? Isn't it? It's right there.
Okay, get this, Hancock. It's queer how out of touch with truth women are. They live in a world of their own, and there had never been anything like it, and never can be. It is too beautiful altogether, and if they were to set it up, it would go to pieces before the first sunset.
Horrible.
That's so mean.
Yes.
I pretty much think that Joseph Conrad was so much on a boat, he's just such a misogynist, racist person.
Because he's surrounded by guys.
All the time.
And savages. No, I'm just kidding.
Even his portrayal of women. Look at the aunt and the wife. I mean, he calls them, calls her weak.
Yeah.
And that she would never be able to handle the truth. And so, as he watches her crying with her light-filled eyes and light hair and stuff, he's just he's idealizing her.
Also,
and then not even telling her the truth.
You know the part where it gets to okay, he's a misogynist, racist person, and then the black woman mistress is the devil herself.
Oh, yeah, and he even talks about how he was strangely attracted to her.
Really?
Doesn't he? I can't remember where it is, but
it's
after
hard
he
to
describes
find
her.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, on this page, he's being racist and feminist. Because he's talking about Kurtz's mistress.
It says that she walked with measured steps, draped in striped and fringed cloths, treading the earth proudly with a slight jingle and a flash of barbarous ornaments. Continues on. She was savage and superb, wild-eyed and magnificent. There was something ominous and stately in her deliberate progress. And then, to top it off, it says, this is one of the boatmen. It says that if she had offered to come aboard, I really think I would have tried to shoot her.
Is it because she's a woman?
Or is it because she's black?
Or is it because she's both?
We don't know.
Wow.
We don't know.
Personally, I think that this work is autobiographical to Conrad. I think that's what he actually thought. Because there's the view that says that Marlowe was just a character who is like Conrad. That all of Marlowe's views are not representational of Conrad. But I think, in my opinion, that they are, and that they're also representational of the time period that he lived in. So it's both his fault and also society.
Probably everybody in charge of the boat trip. There was 6 white guys in charge of how many black guys?
25 of them.
The 6 white guys obviously thought they were superior.
Yeah.
Because there were 6 of them. They're we are above this mess. So.
And I imagine in his personal experience for Conrad that the same thing would have occurred when he went to the Congo. So.
If the black people really wanted to, they could have fought against the stupid white people. Stupid white people.
So how's your trip to Disneyland? What rides have you gone on? I would like to know. It's very important.
I'm sure Space Mountain 10 million times.
Oh, Space Mountain is so much fun.
And you know what? They made it all Star Warsy now. They have the theme music and the noises. The pew pew pew.
Yeah,
Guess
it's
what?
pretty cool.
I was on Space Mountain when it stopped in the middle of the ride one time. So it turned on all the lights. And I saw all of it inside.
That's cool.
And got to step out of it and walk out of it because
pictures.
I don't know. I don't have them
They
anymore.
probably would have taken them away if you had anyway.
But it was so ugly and gray.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's all in the dark. So
Yeah, it's all machines.
Not like you're sprucing it up.
It's true. But it was really cool. I'm just
Well, that concludes 15 minutes.
for
We're
the last 20 seconds, we'll
We're
stare
just
at
gonna
you
stare at
awkwardly.
Do we wait 10 seconds?
No.